Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending the 14th annual Best Practices. We're pleased to bring you two very informational, well, they're huge part of Indian Education for All, and they actually do a lot for us at the Indian Ed for All department. We call on Ruth and Kathi quite a bit in the year and utilize their knowledge and their expertise in Indian Ed for All. So I'm excited to share with you and turn over the floor to both Ruth and Kathi. Also, I wanted just a few things, I guess. If you have questions, go ahead and comment inside the chat, and or even comments. You could actually chat it, and then I will be relaying that information to both Kathi and Ruth. And thank you again, and turning it over to Ruth and Kathi.
Thank you, Stephen. Kathi, I'll let you go first.
All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to Making It Real and finding and learning about how to utilize primary sources within your classroom, and with also with incorporating it into IEFA and being able to bring both of those pieces together. And with that, Ruth and I have a presentation that we're going to work through with you. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with sharing my screen. And then we will move on and start from there. So make it real here. So one of the reasons that Ruth and I kind of came up with this title about making it real is because as we have brought primary sources into our classrooms, and as we've used primary sources to teach different concepts in the different curriculums, what we have found is that when students make a connection to something that is historical and something that is authentic, all of a sudden they understand that it's not just something they're reading about in a textbook, but it is actually something that really did happen and it was real. And so that was kind of where our title came from. So just to introduce myself, my name is Kathi Hoyt, and I am a middle school librarian at Castle Rock, and that is in Billings, Montana. I have been working with Ruth for many years. We do a lot of teamwork and work a lot with Indian Education for All and bringing it into our classrooms, working with professional development with Indian Education for All. But Ruth and I also work with the Library of Congress and teaching with primary sources. And so this is why this kind of came about, is where we can marry those two very, very near and dear to our heart aspects and bring that to you guys. So Ruth?
My name is Ruth Ferris, and I'm a K-5 librarian in Billings and have been working with TPS and IEFA for many years. Kathi and I were working in Castle Rock when I was asked to attend a workshop, and I told her that she was going with me, and she said, nope, she didn't like history. I said, that's okay, you can come anyway. And so I drug her kicking and screaming, and the rest is history. We do a lot with TPS, which is teaching with primary sources. And I know that as a teacher, when I talk to other teachers, first question is, well, where do I find it? And what do I do with it? Because in today's standards, primary sources are very, very, is very much a focus of many of our standards. I'm also, in 2015, was honored to be the Gilder Lehrman Montana History Teacher of the Year. And so I felt very humbled by that. So thank you for being here, and we have lots of resources for you. And always, if you have questions, both Kathy's and my email is On the screen, it's last name, first initial, billingschools.org. So thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to focus on, and when Ruth said that I was kicking and screaming because I didn't like history, she was actually quite correct. And I discovered a long lost passion for history, because you know what? That particular workshop made history become real to me. And that was the first time that I had experienced that. And so what we're going to be focusing on are types of primary sources, like maps, letters, photos, documents, newspapers, but we're going to focus on where do you find them. And then we'll also take a look at the strategies that you might use for using them and bringing them into your classroom. But we also have some shortcuts for you, because you know what? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We are also going to show you some places where you can find already created lessons that are using primary sources and do fit within every single curriculum that's out there. So with that, we want to let you know that we actually have 3 distinct resources. And one of them is, you guys will be able to have a view copy of this particular slide presentation. And all of the links on it will be live. And that is a bit.ly, which is bit.ly/, and then this is IEFA, all in capital letters, real, which is kind of the shortcut for our title. Ruth and I do what's called a one-pager plus, and that one-pager has all of the resources that we're going to be talking about. But because this is such an immense and such a rich topic, our one-pager, you'll notice that plus on there, our one-pager actually ended up being probably 5, maybe 6 pages long. 7 pages, yeah. It's we won't be going over every single thing, but we do want to make sure that you have access to all of the resources that we're going to have, and more. And then I utilize a program called Wakelet, which is a digital bookmark. And what that is I have a collection. It's kind of like Pinterest on steroids. And so I have a collection on IEFA resources that I have put a lot of, not only the IEFA resources that we utilize, but also primary source information and resources that we utilize. So all of these are going to be available for you. And these are the links, or you can simply write it down and use it. Whoops, sorry about that. And we do have a folder in the best conferences folder that we will show you where it is. We do have the link for it.
And the link is up in the chat too.
Okay, that's perfect, because we have put all of these resources there, and so you have access to them. So when we talk about primary sources, one of my particular special primary sources that I love to use are old maps. And one of the best things that I ever saw was, we were teaching about using primary sources. We were teaching about where you can find them. And Ruth and I had pulled some maps that we just put out. And we actually had students and adults that they could spend hours, they were just looking at them and they were starting to study them. And the thing is that when you use maps, pretty soon they start to compare, and they're going to go, well, why is this like this? Why did this change? And so here's an example. We have 2 maps right here. One is from 1879, the other one's from 1887. That is simply 8 years apart. And look at the differences when we take a look at our reservations. Now, maybe not all of them have changed, but there are definite differences between these 2 maps. And as soon as you put that out, and as soon as you show it, immediately you start to have questions. Students start to ask. And as soon as a student starts to ask, you know that they've been hooked. So primary sources, maps, I love maps. It's a great way to get students to start questioning what's going on and what is happening and why are things changing, or why were things the way they were at that point in time. One of the other formats that we use is one of Ruth's favorites, and that's newspapers. We have Chronicling America historic newspapers. And so what I did is I just pulled an example. This particular newspaper is actually from the New York Herald, and it's July 8th of 1876. And what this is this is the Eastern version of Battle of the Little Bighorn. And how amazing is it then for students to be able to read something and now they're going to go, wait a minute, where's the bias, where's the prejudice, all of those different pieces to it. And we will be talking more about using newspapers as far as in your classroom as a source of primary sources. One of the best places to start, of course, is with photographs. These three types of primary sources are three of the most used and probably some of the easiest to start with in your classroom. So if you've never utilized primary sources, the recommendation I have is to start with a picture, start with a photograph. And this particular photograph comes from the Library of Congress. And what you have is just, it's labeled inside an Indian teepee. And I know that when you put this up, immediately you're going to get questions. And I have to admit that the first time I put this up for middle school, one of my kids literally asked where they got the electricity for the sewing machine for, not realizing it's a treadle machine. I mean, all of those different pieces. And so a great way to start having kids delve into and look closer at historical pieces. And that's starting to develop then a historical point of view or historical questioning and being able to look at these. There are so many different things that you can do with a photograph. You can do I Spy with a photograph. You can do just a basic analysis. And we will talk about analysis and the different forms in analysis as we go through our presentation. So these are three examples of primary sources. These are just three very quick things that you might utilize within your classroom. So the question was, of course, where do we find them? And Library of Congress, of course, is where you're going to find any format of a primary source. And they also have so much there that it can be overwhelming at times. And so I'm going to take you into the Library of Congress, and I'm going to show you where to get to the pieces that are quick and easy to pick out, because the Library of Congress believes in teaching with primary sources. And so they've done a lot of the footwork already for teachers, and for teachers to be able to bring this in. They've created lessons, they've created sets, they've created analysis tools. All of these are readily available. The Library of Congress has also digitized a lot of their collection. And because it is digitized, it is also available for you to use in the classroom to copy. All of those pieces have already been put into place. And so when I say any format, I mean any format. The Library of Congress has the diaries, it has the letters, but it also has videos. It also has music. It has the photographs. It has all of the different types of primary sources that you might want to use. So the address for the Library of Congress is simply loc.gov. Notice it is in all lower cases. So when you go to the Library of Congress, this is what the home page looks like. And they always have, this changes. And so you will always see that. The trending, of course, changes because that's what's going on. And then they have these different pieces, like these never change. Those are always there. But the free to use and reuse, this changes on a regular basis. And this is kind of fun because they pick a topic and then they provide all of these different resources that you can use. So they have a set basically already put together. But as a teacher, this is where I want to show you. This is going to be what my recommendation is for your first experience with the Library of Congress. And this is a tab for the Teachers tab. When you go to the Teachers Resources, you will notice that we have our own separate page here. And there's a lot of different pieces that are available. If you've never worked with primary sources at all, they already have it set up where they will take you through step by step on getting started with primary sources. They give you ideas, they give you lessons, they give you what's the best way to bring this into your classroom. They also have classroom materials already set up for you, and we'll take a look at those different types of classroom materials that they have ready. The professional development, they have that set up. You guys can actually earn some PD credits for that, but they have it set up to where you work through that. So let's take a look at our left-hand toolbar. With this, we have where we can contact them and what's going on. They also have a blog and a Twitter that you can follow. But here are additional resources. They have the American Library with the books, but here's where you can also access Chronicling America, and Ruth is going to take us through this in a little bit. They have everyday mysteries. So if you teach science, guys, this is where you're going to go. Every day they have a new mystery that you can work on. Family engagement resources. Here's where we find our free to use and reuse sets, and they just keep a collection of them for us. Research guides, or Today in History. I know a lot of teachers use Today in History as a bell ringer for their students. And this is a great place to get that particular bell ringer. It's set up every day, and students could come and do a little bit of work in finding that. And then workshops. So here's additional resources. But let's focus on our main piece. As librarians, I would be remiss to not point out the fact that they do tell you how to cite your sources, because that is a big deal. And so they actually have a video in all these different pieces so our students know exactly how to cite it. But what's even better, they actually have the citation on the site where you find the primary source. So it is given to you. Here's our getting started pieces, and here's our primary source analysis tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the primary source analysis tools, because these are basics. And they give you all the pieces that you need for analyzing primary sources. And when we talk about analyze, we're talking about how do we teach our students how to look at this and how to look at it critically. Because I think it's important that students don't just automatically accept everything that they see or everything that they read. They need to be able to look at it critically, and they learn how to do that by analyzing it. When we said that the Library of Congress has every type of primary source available, I wasn't kidding. This is a basic analysis, but you can also have separate ones for analyzing books, manuscripts. Here's the map ones, motion pictures, the video, newspapers, stories, the oral histories, how to analyze a photograph, political cartoons. And I know a lot of teachers use political cartoons in their classrooms. There's a way that's set up automatically so that you can ask the right questions on analyzing political cartoons, sheet music and songs, and of course sound recordings. Now, the reason that these are here like this is because each one has different types of questions that you would ask your students as they're taking a look at, let's say they're taking a look at a map. And so what changes are the questions, but not the format. The format, and this is really, really cool because they took this basic primary source analysis tool and they made it so that we can actually type in it.
Stop projecting.
You can either do it as a class where the students answer, or you can actually give this to the students. They can create it, they can submit it. within a classroom. But it's the perfect piece to, because it is, excuse me, because it is set up where you can actually type on it. That makes it really, really great, because that makes it then a little more interactive. Now, I said that this doesn't change. Okay, what changes are the questions. And so in this case, we are always asking our students to observe, to look at what they are going to be analyzing, to reflect, to think about it. You know, why do you think this is going on, or why do you think this is happening? And then it's the question, having them start to question what they are looking at and what they are seeing. So in this case, when we're looking at a map, they are going to, you know, first thing you're going to say is, well, what do you notice first? What is the size and shape of a map? And so, of course, that's specific to maps. That's why they have all of these different questioning and PDFs for this piece, is because the questions change, the format does not. And so this is a basic format, and we're going to show you two different types of analysis sheets that you can also use. But I love the fact that having these questions always gives you as a teacher, you know exactly what kind of questions should I be asking my students as they take a look at this particular piece of primary source. And so all of that is available within our analysis tools within, oops, went the wrong way, sorry guys. So that is the primary source analysis tools. Then what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to come up here to where it says classroom materials. This is where they have already built everything for you. And as you can see, they have taken this, and a primary source set is librarians at the Library of Congress have gone out and they have collected different types of primary sources on specific topics, and they have put it all together and have made all of those source sets available for you as a teacher to automatically just download and print and use as you need in your classroom. They also have teacher created lesson plans, the lesson plan piece right here. And it's not necessary. The nice thing about this, guys, is that these lesson plans are teacher created. They are created by those who have used them in their classrooms, understand what it is and what it means in order to be able to teach this topic within your class. It's not somebody sitting in an office someplace and creating it. So they're a vetted lesson plan. And I think that that's extremely important. So when you take a look at a primary source set, you will see that they have 92 different source sets already created. And you can search for different things, but I like to go through and take a look at what they have because they add to it. And so when they start to add, and it's always being creative and changing, then that lets me know, I mean, they have new stuff coming in all the time. And I want to show you that they have a class set, a source set already on Native American boarding schools, if this is something that you do within your classroom. So when I click on that, this brings me all of the resources that they have put together. One of the neat things about their source sets is that they try to use a collection of a variety of different primary sources. So not only do they include pictures, but they also include documents, newspapers. This one, I believe, is a flyer that they were using. They try to find different political cartoons, and all of these notice are downloadable as a PDF. So when you click on this particular resource, it comes up And this is from February 25th, 1916. This is a newspaper article. You can pull it up, you can enlarge it, you can also save it. But notice here is the citation right here with it. And so they give it to you, and that includes the citation that comes with it. So all of these are available. The other piece that's really nice with this is, notice it says jump to teacher's guide. So if, let's say that you're not real comfortable with what you see, or you don't really know how you're going to do this, in the teacher's guide, they still link to our analysis tools, but they give you some background information about this topic. They will give you suggestions. Lesson plans that take you directly into like reservation controversies and exploring the stories behind Native American boarding schools. So this is a lesson plan that's already been made up. And so you can actually click on that lesson plan. It gives you, this is what I like, it gives you the preparation for it. It tells you what you need to do, what materials that you are going to need. They link you to the primary source set. They give you the procedure that you're going to be using for this if you choose, and they give you all the links, take you through it step by step, and they also give you the evaluation for it. So the Library of Congress is making it easier for us as teachers to be able to bring primary sources into our classroom. And so those are the primary source sets that are available. This is where I recommend that you start. If you go to lesson plans, these are also set out. These are exactly like what I showed you. The thing with our lesson plans is we also have 92 of them. They are usually tied directly to the primary source sets. Here's a lesson plan on reservation controversies. Takes you through it. Again, same thing, but it also gives you the primary source set that you're going to be using. And then they also have all of these different accounts and views. So they give you a very in-depth background with that. So these two pieces, especially the lesson plans and the primary source sets, those are huge when it comes to being able to very quickly pull primary sources into your classroom, because the Library of Congress is huge. And when you first start to look at it and use it, it can be very intimidating. And so we wanted to let you know that you don't have to be intimidated. You don't have to be afraid of this, because they believe in the teachers, and they want to make it easy for you guys and all of us, including me, to bring this into our classes. And so if you have a question, if you want to see something special, don't hesitate to actually get hold of the librarians at the Library of Congress, and they will be able to give you some help, especially if you're lost with finding things. So guys, that's the Library of Congress in a very, very, very small nutshell, because it's immense. But as teachers, the things that we are going to use the most are going to be their analysis tools, their source sets, and the lessons that they have already prepared for us. Now, besides, even if I don't necessarily use that lesson step by step, it's a great place for me to go in and look at how did they use the primary sources? How did they create this lesson around a primary source? And that can give me some great ideas, because we all know that teachers are great at taking somebody else's idea and turning it into something that they can use and something that works for them. So, place where you can find them, Library of Congress. And even better than that, they already give you lessons, and they already give you the analysis tools and the sets to use. So great place to start.
Thank you, Kathi. I'm going to talk about the TPS Teachers Network, which is part of the Library of Congress. It's housed out of Denver, and it has, up to this time, the membership has been predominantly teachers, museum personnel, librarians. We're about to undergo some changes where the Library of Congress is putting out grants and encouraging folks outside of the traditional education mainstream to apply, like for adult learning and things. And so I hear that we may even be undergoing a new name. But in order to use this source, you need to go to the TPS Teachers Network and register. It's free. We have approximately 11,000 members right now, predominantly over the US, but in other countries as well. So this is what your registration page will look like. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, can you click on that?
Oh, which one do you want? I'm sorry.
That I want the network. Do you know your password right offhand?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So if you would open that. So what this does, one of the things I want to show you is kind of what it looks like. And also one of the tools they have is the album. And this says it's not there. I think we still have the registration up. Ah, there we are. This is what it looks like when you come into the TPS Commons. TPS Commons, everybody belongs to it, but there are lots of different groups that you can join, like art, music. We have a TPS Montana. Almost anything that you can imagine, there's groups for. Some of them are private, like a lot of the universities or colleges may be doing some lessons with their students, and that group is private. Because most people, when you're first starting out, don't want everybody looking over their shoulder. But one of the ones I like is the History Mystery Series. And if you would click on that one, one of the ones that they have right now is on Native American sovereignty during the Revolutionary War. And they do some amazing things with history mysteries that can be used in your classroom. So you might want to check this out. But would you click on one of the, go back to the TPS Commons and click on the albums? Oh, I guess you can do it right there from the tab. 3 went over. Okay. So
Right.
On the albums.
I'm going to go down to all albums.
Yep,
Okay.
that works. Okay. So when you're in the albums page, you can create your own album. And so this is a place where you can put your primary sources. You can put outside information that you have gathered. So say my topic is circuses. I can put primary sources that I have pulled from the Library of Congress. I can put pictures that I might have in my own personal collection. I can add my lesson plan directly into that album. Those albums can be transferred out and shared out with other colleagues if you're co-teaching. And there's a lot of albums that have already been created that you can use. As you're building your album, you can have it on private where you're not sharing it, or that you can share it publicly. And that is a tool that is very valuable as you begin working with primary sources, to have one place. And as you upload the things, there'll be questions that it'll ask. What is your source, so that it makes it easier to cite later on. Okay, next. So we've talked about, go back for just a minute. I wanted to review. We'll move on. Chronicling America is the other piece. Okay, so the history mysteries you have to have registered to be able to click on the History Mysteries link. So just to let you know that you won't get anywhere until you register. But once you register, you will have full access. So, all right. So Chronicling America is where I started many years ago, when I was doing some freelance work for the Montana Historical Society. And one of my tasks dealt with Chronicling America, which back then was not user-friendly. And I contacted Martha Cole and I said, do you have a tutorial for this thing? And she said, no, I think it'd be a good idea for you to write one. And I hung up the phone and went, that was not my intention. Today, it is much more user-friendly. And it goes up to 1963 because recently the copyright ruling on how many years has changed. And so we've got the new age, the new years. So, and some of these newspapers go back to the 1700s. Not every newspaper is digitized, and the full run of them are not always digitized. But a huge amount is. Okay, let's go to topics in Chronicling America. Now, topics in Chronicling America are similar to the photograph primary source sets. These are by topics. And so you can scroll down and see different topics, and it will pull up different newspapers that talk about it. Everything from
Yoga to circuses.
yeah, yoga to yeah. It's and this is a recent thing that they have put in, is the Chronicling America by topics. Okay, let me show you the Montana newspapers. Okay, if you'd click on that one. Okay, so in the Montana Historical Society site, there's a piece that should say Historic Newspapers, number 2. Now, Montana has digitized different newspapers that were published in Montana. Some of these are not in Chronicling America, some are, but they're not the full run either, because you're looking at millions of pages and digitizing is complex. So they've tried to take some of everything, especially around historic event, to try to help that. And you can find, so they'll have a link both to Chronicling America and to Montana newspapers. The third link that they have will talk about the different databases and let you look at the database to see what years was published and which newspapers that they were published by. And so it's a good idea if you're looking for something that was Montana to check here as well as Chronicling America, because there are differences.
Whoops.
Okay, are we in the Wakelet? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next one. All right. Some big places that have, that was yours.
Additional places that you can find primary sources. I mean, we showed you the Library of Congress and all of the different pieces that it has, but it's not the only thing that's out there. If you want to find, if you don't find what you're looking for in the Library of Congress, you can always try National Archives. National Archives goes to, great extent on making sure that they do have archives that are digitally set for people to be able to use. Native Knowledge 360 is through the Smithsonian, and they have amazing, not only information, but they also have lessons and resources. And they also have a museum that have pieces and resources that you can use. So, you know, if you have never taken a look at Native Knowledge 360, and I know that Native Knowledge 360 has been highlighted before in Best Practices Conference, but it, you know, it's from the Smithsonian. It's got some great resources. And what in the last couple of years, the American Indian Museum, the National Museum of the American Indian, has opened up. This is also through the Smithsonian, and they also have some great resources that are available. They have magazine, they have virtual field trips. You know, love the fact that a lot of these places offer that virtual field trip, because you know what, for most of our classes here, especially here in Montana, this is not an option to be able to go back to Washington, DC and take a look at that. So these are additional places that you can explore in order to find additional resources and primary resources and information. So we looked at the very first analysis tool, which is the general analysis tool that's available. It has the 3 different pieces, but we also have what's called the thinking triangle. And the thinking triangle looks like this. This is another one that is interactive. In other words, what that means is you actually download this and you can put it in and save it. And then this is another way of asking students to analyze and take a look at it. And the different pieces that come with it is like who or what. So there's one answer. When do you think this took place? Where or what place? There's 3 that you're going to have answered there. How, and you're going to have 4 different answers on how, what's going on, why, all of those, and that's 5. So this is kind of just a different version of an analysis, but its basic set and basic idea is to simply get your students to start thinking critically about what they're looking at. And that's what analyzing primary sources is all about. One of my favorite ones, and I think this is probably a result of Ruth and talking to the group at Barat, but it's called a sensory exploration. And a sensory exploration is using your senses. And this is so much fun, especially when you're looking at a photograph. You can't use it in, you know, a map or a diary or something like that, but especially for photographs, because you're going to ask the students, okay, first off, what do you see? And they get to list that. But then you're going to say, okay, what might you hear? If you were there, what might you hear? And they get to think about what are the things that they would hear, and they have to look at that and go into it and say, okay, what's making sound? I love the one that's, what do you smell? Especially when we have ones that have a lot of horses around it, because, you know, I teach middle school, and so you can only imagine what those guys could come up with for what they smell. But then we have, what could you touch? What might you feel if you were there? And then this one is, what might you taste? And so this really starts to get the students thinking about what is actually going on within that picture, and it really is, especially for younger students, it's a great way to get them to think about it. And you know what, they don't need to be able to read in order to be able to understand this. And so it's a great analysis tool.
The Ready-to-Go lessons, we have picked 3 that have lessons already for you to use or to adapt. The Montana Historical Society has lessons that one of my favorites is Artist Journey Storytelling Unit, which deals with ledger art that they have already created. They have a winter count lesson. The Montana Office of Public Instruction has a whole plethora of lessons that have been created for IEFA that are yours to use. PBS has lessons that are available, teaching with primary sources and inquiry kits. So those are all resources with Ready-to-Go Lessons.
And one of the cool things about these Ready-to-Go lessons is that all of these places, the Montana Historical Society, the Office of Public Instruction, IEFA, and PBS, all of these groups utilize primary sources in their lessons. And so it's a ready-made lesson that includes primary sources. And that's what this is all about, is bringing that and making it real for our students and bringing that in.
This one is the Cheyenne Odyssey, and this is one of my favorites. PBS several years ago went to create it. They contacted the Northern Cheyenne Cultural Committee, and so they would send what work they had done to the committee. The committee would look it over and tell them what they needed to fix. So this particular game was vetted by the Cultural Committee of the Northern Plains, Northern Cheyenne Nation. Not only is there the video games, which my kids loved, even my Crow kids liked it, but they have a section for teachers. They have primary sources. They have lessons that go along with the game. So if you just turn the kids loose with the game, you have done yourself and the kids a disservice by not bringing in the other material. So it is a game. It does have primary sources. When you look at that, and if you had photographs of the area around Lame Deer, you would see that the background that was drawn is based on the real world. And it is culturally relevant and accurate.
So we've got about 2 minutes left. So basically what we're going to do is I'm going to show you what that one pager looks like, so that when you see it within our folder, or if you actually take this particular bit.ly, you will see what it is like. And a one pager is amazing because you're going to recognize, like, here's our Library of Congress. Here's the analysis tool that we talked about, the triangle. Here's some great links for some of the maps and additional maps that we didn't even bring in. There is our Historical Society, the Art of Storytelling. Here is the link specifically to the analyzing. So you can see what a one pager looks like. And we do have specific links to what we very quickly threw out there at you guys. But, you know, there's a ton of other links in here that Ruth has included. So that is what a one pager is, and that is what our one pager looks like.
Kathi, I wanted to add just a little bit on the National Archives.
Uh-huh.
The National Archives have a lot of the military pieces. So they have records of, you know, the Army rosters who are out, of the units that were out here. They also have some of the treaties and information like that. So things that would have been military based, you will find at the National Archives. They also have something called Docs Teach, which is a really good tool to use when you're working with primary sources.
Yeah, good point. So our one pager plus for you, that has even more than we gave you. I mean, it was overwhelming enough, I'm sure. This is what Wakelet looks like. And we're looking at IEFA resources right now. There's 28 items on here. And you'll notice a lot of these are what we have talked about today in the presentation, but there are additional resources. If you have never seen this particular video that came out, it's amazing. We have specific pieces from OPI, the Western Heritage Center, the Montana State Parks. They have Indian education lessons within them also. There's our 360 Montana tribes. So you'll see that there's a lot of additional pieces within here. Again, it's a digital bookmark, and this one is public, which means that everybody has access to view it. The nice thing about both of these is if we add to it, and I know I add to the Wakelet one, but when we add to that, you guys automatically see any additions. It doesn't just stay stagnant. It is what we call alive, and it does change as we go through it.
Okay, on the one pager, make sure you copy down the bit.ly somewhere, because if I make changes to that, it will change on the bit.ly. It will not change on your PDF if you take it out of the conference file.
Exactly, and that's why we gave you these that are within the slideshow, and we did give you the slideshow in this folder. So, we went a little bit over, but with that, do we have any questions?
I didn't see any questions, Kathi and Ruth. However, I saw some positive comments I was just going to read to you guys, or unless you want to check them out, what would you prefer?
Awesome.
Go ahead and read them.
Okay. Terry just states that this is such a helpful presentation. I texted a teacher friend mentioning how I've been teaching all these years without the Library of Congress. Thank you both so much. Christina says, these resources are wonderful. Eileen, I believe is how you pronounce her name. Amazing. Thank you. Susan says, wow, in caps. With exclamation. Thank you so much. Kieran, I think is how you pronounce her name, says thanks so much, great resources. Shane says, what is your top tip for using primary sources and balancing letting students explore them independently and draw their own conclusions from them while still guiding the explorations of to prevent misunderstandings?
Exactly.
I think one of the best ones to start with is like an I Spy. So like I might take a busy photograph and have them look specifically for them. And then as they have looked and found things, then ask open-ended questions about what they think. What do they think is happening? You know, I had done that with a group of third graders. I had a photograph of Chief Plentycoo and his wife in a 1910 car. And the kids looked at the black and white picture and says it's an old photograph. So it was an old time. And I said, well, what year do you think it might have taken place? Oh, probably the 1980s. I thought their teacher was going to fall off her chair howling, because that's what they thought was really old. So as they're looking at things and then talking about what they have shared.
And I think too that one of the things is it's their experience. So yeah, open-ended questions. And when you first start with primary sources, you do have to guide, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we have to teach our students how to think critically, because it does not come naturally to them. And so using those open-ended questions, but do still guide them, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's the perfect way to start.
And those analysis tools are really a great building block for doing that.
Okay, so with that, I know it's like 3:15, so I know that we need to be able to get back for our youth leadership piece. And
well, real quickly, somebody just wanted a quick question.
sure.
You answered. How do you get bit.ly links?
Oh, if you just type in bit.ly, I think it's .com, it will bring it up.
Okay.
And that's how you can create a bit.ly. Yeah. Is that what they're asking, is how do you create them?
I
Or
believe
how
so.
do you-
It says, could you repeat how we get to bit.ly links?
Okay, so the bit.lys, what I'm just going to show you real quick.
Okay.
There they are. So you can quick write it down. It's bit.ly/, and then it's the IEFA capital one pager, bit.ly IEFA real. And if you just, like if you're looking at this, if you click on it, you can get there. But if you just type this in,
You'll
then
get there.
you should get there.
Also, our slides, the one pager and the sensory one are in the conference folder.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Then just a few more thank yous. Thank you. Very helpful from Carla. And Olga also says thank you very much. Lots of great resources. Thank you from Kathi Bear. Great resources. Thank you. Excellent. I'm glad I chose this section to follow. And thank you kindly from Lauren.
Awesome.
And thank you all for
Thank you.
attending and being patient with us. It is time we have to switch over to the other room. So appreciate everyone attending and all the positive comments and feedback. Please, if you get a chance after this, go ahead and fill out I can't even think of the word right now, but go ahead and fill out that
Evaluation.
evaluation. Thank you. Go ahead and fill out that evaluation. I'm thinking about 3 things right now. And anyway, evaluation and submit it. And thank you for your feedback and see you in room 1.
Thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you.